What's going on? This is My Life in the Shop. I'm your host, Donald Washington. I'm going to bring you guys updates to that Florida story that left a mother of four, 35-year-old mother of four dead. I'm going to bring you guys that. I'm going to also bring you guys out there, and I want to show you guys the bullet hole through that door. Look how big that bullet hole is. I'm going to bring you guys out there and to what happened. I'm going to bring you guys the events that led up to it. I'm going to bring you guys that. I'm going to also bring you guys the story, the protest that was happening out there. Renee, what's going on in this story?
Yeah, so this story happened Friday, June 2nd, around 9 p.m. out of Ocala, Florida. The victim name is Ajike Owens. She's 35 years old, mother of four. So allegedly how this all got started is that her kids were playing in a nearby field, and allegedly her neighbor, Susan Louise Lorincz, started hurling racial slurs at them. Mind you, they were just outside playing, and allegedly she threw a skate and it allegedly hit one of the kids. So the kids said they left the iPad or a tablet behind, and that Susan Louise allegedly took this iPad. So the mother, Ajike Owens, went to, knock on the door and ask her about this. And allegedly Susan Louise shot her through the door, shot her in the chest. And unfortunately, Ajike Owens didn't make it.
Okay, so now, Susan Louise, who is 58 years old, she is now being charged with a first degree felony, which is punishable up to 30 years.
Yeah, manslaughter with a firearm and a few other charges.
So now it took the police some time to make an arrest, and the sheriff made it clear. He said that, hey, the reason there was no arrest made right away is because, hey, they had to make sure that they had a case. Now, I'm going to read you guys a statement. Wood said that was not stand your ground case because it was simply just a killing. Is that correct, Renee?
Yes. So Lorenz is trying to say that Owens allegedly was trying to break down the door, but according to witnesses and surveillance, that's not the case. So she more than likely won't be able to use the stand your ground law.
So they had been feuding for 2.5 years. All right, before we get to that, look at this hole in this door. Look at how big that hole is in that door. What if now she was shot in the chest?
Right.
All right, so she was shot in the chest. All right, so now let's break down to what happened. Let's break down what happened. They're saying the kids was playing in a field, a nearby field. All right. The police got a call regarding, and I think from the 58-year-old Susan. I think she called on trespassing. Then the police got a call about a shooting. Right, but what led up to that is that Susan felt that the kids were trespassing in her yard. She was angry about the kids playing and allegedly came out yelling racial slurs and threw some skates at one of the kids and allegedly hit one of those kids.
Right.
At that point, the kids should have went to the mother and called the police, because at that point, that's assault to a minor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That could have very well been a assault charge, and the police would have came out and handled it, and then hopefully this tragedy may not have happened.
All right, so now, before Ajike knocked on the door, an older sibling, one of her brothers or sisters, went and knocked on the door, and Susan swung an umbrella at him, allegedly.
Right. Yeah.
What prompted Ajike to go to the house. But allegedly, I read a story and something about an iPad was left on Susan's property and she took it, allegedly. Yeah. And that's why Ajike was... Go ahead.
Yeah. I also read that she, even in a few articles, some articles mention it, some articles don't. I also read that she allegedly threw the iPad and cracked the screen in one of those articles. So that could have very well been a case to call the police and say, hey, she took an iPad, she broke it, she hit him with the skates. Right. I mean, there's so many different things that you could have called the police for.
Absolutely. But however, in this particular case, The police, sometimes people feel like, hey, how many times am I going to call the police? If it was a 2.5 year feud, the police was probably like, yo. And it was, they probably been out and nothing may have been done all of those
Yeah,
particular times.
yeah, I read somewhere like up to like half a dozen times over those 2.5 years that the police were called.
Right. And so, at that point, people get tired of keep calling the police and nothing's being done.
Right, correct.
However, who would have thought on girl would have just shot through the door? Now, it's going to be he said in the court of law, it's going to be he said, she said on if she was banging on the door making threats or if she just knocked on the door.
Right. I did read in one of the articles there was a heated exchange, but Lorenz is allegedly saying she tried to break down a door. But according to witnesses and surveillance, they said that's not true. So a heated exchange or argument maybe not, but not breaking down the door.
Right. Okay. So now the sheriff is saying, hey, there's enough evidence. There's a surveillance video and through witness statements that she was not trying to break down the door. She was not making threats. That's
Right.
why charges were eventually filed.
Right.
So now let's get to this. Now the protest. I think that the police out of Florida, Ocala, Florida, they were very transparent in this particular case. From right away, they let it be known, hey, anytime a stand your ground law is possible, they cannot make an immediate arrest. They got to get the evidence. They got to get enough evidence for get the state's prosecutors enough evidence right away. So now this is the yard that the kids was allegedly playing in, and I think that's particularly her house. Susan, who's 58 years old, I think that's her house. However, that's a big yard. And
yeah, that's a very big yard, and it's very unfortunate because I don't know if there's a park nearby. I don't see a park. It looks like it's big enough where they can play ball and do all of those things. And it sounds like Lorraine was just irritated, maybe hearing them, throw a ball or just hearing them playing. She just seemed to be very just irritated with kids playing near her yard.
And you know what? The older people get in the neighborhood, the more cranky, and it's expected. However, in this particular case, kids are going to kick balls in your yard.
Right.
I mean, I don't care where they play. They could be playing way down the street and just young boys, young girls, that's what they do as kids. They just kick balls and they go way down the street. That's just how I was. That's how all the kids in my neighborhood was. We kicked balls in everybody's yard. Had to run and go get it. Whoops.
Yeah, kids play with toys. Kids play with balls. They're going to make noise. You're going to hear them outside playing, riding their bikes, things like that. Yes, that is going to happen.
But it's how you deal with it is what defines you and defines the situation. Now, that was assault. I believe in this case, even if they called the police a half a dozen times, and in this case, they had an arrest.
Yeah, absolutely. Throwing an object at someone and then possibly taking an iPad or tablet that doesn't belong to you, and then cracking the screen possibly. Absolutely.
Right. That's damage to a private property. That's aggravated assault or escape.
Right, yeah.
So that's an assault charge. So, but you know what? Who would ever expect you to get shot through the door? Now, the 10-year-old, from what I understand, was next to her, something like that. Now, look at this bullet through this door. That could have, if it hit the mother in the chest, that could have hit the 10-year-old in the face. Granted, some 10-year-olds get tall quick, but...
Right. So, I don't know if she was looking through the peephole and actually shot her that way, or she just shot into the door. But, thankfully, she only shot once, then she didn't hit the child or anybody else. So, I mean, that's just... I don't know why you would shoot someone through a door. that doesn't have a weapon or wasn't trying to kick the door down, all out of frustration.
Honestly, and that could be a possible attempted homicide as well. I mean, one count of homicide, and normally if you shoot at a car and there's 4 people in there, that's 4 counts of attempted murder.
Right.
That's
so it sounds like she really thought she was going to get off on this and be able to use your stand your ground law.
But you know what? I mean, in 2023, it's never a good idea ever. So even no matter what happens, no matter how many times you got to call the police, it's never ever a good idea to go to somebody's house.
Especially when you have that stand your ground law in your state, because people feel like they can use it, whether they can use it or not. They feel like they can already get away with whatever it is because they feel like they can just use that law. So definitely not. You don't want to do that.
So she's facing a first-degree felony, which is up to 30 years. I believe that the prosecution will probably drop the other charges. She's facing 2 other counts of assault, something like that. Now, you know what? I'm not sure. So it's like 3 other charges.
Yeah.
And
you just never know what the prosecution is going to do. Do you think they'll go ahead with the charges and she'll actually do jail time of some sort?
Yeah, let's see how this plays.
Because she was allegedly hurling racial slurs, so it's possible it could be a racial case.
Right.
Yeah, that's very possible. And then also, she did have 4 kids, so unfortunately, 4 kids are left without a mother. And one of them at least may have seen what happened.
Okay, yeah. So the kids are old enough to be witnesses, so they're going to be able to go and testify and say exactly what happened. Anyway, make sure you guys like, subscribe. Let me know what you think about this video. Appreciate you coming on, Renee. Peace, y'all. In the shy. Ooh, it's my life in the shy.